here from Pomona High School. Today we are discussing Emily Dickinson's poem, There's a Certain Slant of Light. First, we'd like to start off with the line, what do you guys think the word light and a certain slant of light means? And is it harsh or good?
So I think with the darkness, with a certain slant of light, there's a slant of only a small amount of light. So that means it's like covered with darkness around that little light. So I think it's like the world is like covered, or is like there's a lot of darkness in the world and there's only like a small brightness.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like it's a negative connotative meaning. It's like a harsh kind of meaning. I think light means like literal light, like coming out from like the sun or something, and that's why I agree. I think it's a negative connotation.
And in the first stanza, second line, winter afternoons, Danielle, what are your thoughts on winter afternoons? Do you think it's bitter or depressing?
I think it's more of a depressing because when you think about it, everything's really quiet and it's just like, yeah, and cold. And when you think, I don't know, it's just compared to like summer, it's not as like happy and sunny.
It's like dry, so that's what I feel like when he talks about, when she talks about winter afternoons, it's like, I don't know, you feel like the bitterness of the air.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then if you compare winter afternoons and cathedral tunes in the first stanza, she uses the use of the word heft. What do you guys think is the significance? Because like cathedral tunes is like when you listen to it, it's deep and it's heavy. And winter afternoons, if it's like depressing and it's deep too.
I feel like with that, when it talks about heft, I feel like it just brings it down because it also says that oppresses. So I feel like the light kind of oppresses the mood down. So.
And then heft means weight or to carry or lift, so it just kind of feels like
it just brings it down.
Brings it down.
Okay, and then in the second stanza, heavenly hurt, I thought that was a juxtaposition because you would think it's heaven as like dreamy and like light, but hurt is like it's the complete opposite. What do you think? Why do you think Emily Dickinson put that in there? Julian?
Well, just think, because like, I kind of think this poem is like about death and stuff, so I just think, like when it says heavenly hurt, it's like, I don't know, like you go to heaven and it's good, but then like you're dying, so it's bad, I guess.
I kind of think it represents like her internal depression, because I feel like the beginning of this like poem is just kind of really depressing, and so like heavenly hurt is just another way of like showing how sad she is. But
and going off of that second line, that same stance, it says we can find no scars. So, like with depression, you can't really see someone's hurt.
And
so
it's internal.
Yeah, and then internal difference.
And then internal differences or difference.
What are your thoughts on internal difference?
Oh, I just think that, like, yeah, it's just like depression, and like when we can find no scars, so like it's not on the outside, it's what's on the inside of her, and then she says internal difference. And I think it is about like depression and anger.
Missy, morning.
Hi. I just want to kind of go back to what you guys were just talking about. Well, because you were talking about heaven and how that's a much more brighter thing to talk about, and how it starts off really depressing and upsetting, and then Lana said light. She'd taken it in a literal term. But when you're going down and reading now, it's talking about heaven. Do you think light could mean something more than just like light? Do you think it could represent a little bit of hope?
Yeah, that's what we were thinking. So like light, like the light is the hope and the depression. But it says like there's a certain slant of light. I think that certain slant has to save you.
I think it's like fading away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So her hope is.
It's just super slim.
Towards the end, it kind of seems like it's fading away. So when we were talking about it, we thought that the certain slant of light was just a little bit of hope in the overall negative.
I kind of picture like a sunset, and like the sun is like almost down as like the last light, but like it's almost about to go.
And then it's dark.
Down, yeah, and then it's dark.
Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Nick.
Hello. So I want to backtrack a little bit. When it's talking about in the third and fourth line, that oppresses like the heft of cathedral tunes, is she talking I'm wondering if you guys think that if she thinks that religion is kind of oppressing and in a bad connotation, as in such a way that light is being oppressed in winter.
I don't think we ever thought of it or, related it back to religion.
Yeah.
But when we were talking about cathedral, we
Well,
kind of
'cause-
thought of an organ, like,
Yeah. Or like a
Exactly.
funeral.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
could be a funeral.
So I guess it does. It could kind of, I feel like it could definitely relate to religion and how the
And-
weight of it oppresses.
With that, reading this, it just, when it came up with cathedral tunes, I really just pictured like a hollow church, like no one's in there, just you by yourself, so just like it's really hollow and empty, so I feel like it also relates back to depression.
When you think about church, like you wouldn't think about like it being a dark place, but then in this poem, it really makes you think about how it's like empty and
That's why I thought of it as like a funeral type thing.
Yeah, 'cause it's not supposed to be happy. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, Lauren.
Hi. Okay. So first, I want to go back to the whole heavenly hurt thing, and then I have a literary question for you guys. So with the heavenly hurt and that whole stanza, I totally agree. It's definitely about her depression, and then further goes into the fading down. But I think that the reason that she uses the word heavenly in specific is because if you've ever experienced depression in the past, it's like it's extremely hard to get out of because there is part of you that's drawn to it, and it kind of does feel positive in some ways, and so it just like locks you down in that, and that's where the decline happens. And then my literary question is in stanza 3 when she says none may teach it dash any dash, and like we know that she uses dashes a lot at the end of each line. However, I haven't seen it separating one specific word out. So what do you think the significance of that word being separated out means?
I think it wanted to emphasize like the any, like none may teach it, so no one can like teach you or like help you with the depression,
Like
like
no
the
one
internal
knows.
difference.
You have to pull yourself out of depression,
Yeah.
obviously.
I think it's emphasizing the fact that no one can help you but you. It's like,
Yeah.
So the any is definitely emphasizing them then. Cool. Thank you.
In the third stanza, "'Tis the seal despair, Edgar, what do you think has to do with Julia's ideas on internal difference?"
I just feel like that with like despair means, I mean, it brings her like whole mood down, so I feel like she's not really getting out of this hole she's digging herself in, so I feel like it's kind of like a hard thing to talk about just because like, going back to what Lauren said, like she separates Annie, so like you're kind of alone in this battle that she's fighting with the depression and stuff, so I feel like that's, the despair relates back to it, being like feeling alone and all that. So.
Okay, and then on Imperial Affliction, like we said that everywhere she goes, the depression follows, and then that sentence of the air is like nothing, like
Like it comes out of nowhere.
So I
Yeah.
think when we thought of the word imperial, we kind of thought of it as being like a huge like empire, so we kind of related it back to like a larger area, and when it says sentence of the air, it's like it came out of nowhere, like depression does come out of nowhere sometimes.
it doesn't have to have a reason always.
Yeah. Or it can be like a really small,
Yeah.
pretty much nothing.
Yeah. And then in the last stanza, we said that when it says, "When it comes, the landscape listens, shadows hold their breath." Landscape and shadows, we thought was a personification because people listen to you like after you're dead. It seems like.
I feel like in this sentence it even talks about death itself, so when it says it comes, like it's talking about death coming.
Like it is
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
So it's like when, that's why we think it's the light started to fade, because then she didn't talk about it as it just kind of being there. It talked about how it affected her. So when it comes, we thought it was death. She uses like nature to like illuminate themes related to internal conflict, like the landscape and like winter afternoons.
Yeah, and I feel like the landscape listens also relates to back, like, say she did pass away, like that's when people would have like listened to her and wanted to talk to her about her problems, but I mean, then it was too late. So.
I think when it says landscape listens, it's more like she's kind of saying like it was like unexpected, like everyone's like in shock, and that's why they're all like listening, you know, like they weren't ready for it.
Hold their breath. It's like anticipation.
Yeah, like she like kind of like shocked them, I guess.
And then for the, and then for the when it goes to like the distance, I just want to point out that it kind of, like when I read it, it seems like you're looking out kind of like the sunset image where it's like it's too late, and so you're just like looking out on it. Like death is like you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, like when it says when it goes, it's more like after she's dead, like after it's already happened for a while. She says it's like to like distance, like it's just in the past, I guess, but like you said, there's nothing you can do to it.
See ya.